Brought to you by Tailored Wealth, helping business leaders live their version of a rich life.
Welcome to another edition of the Making Sense of Your Money podcast, where we cut through the financial noise and help business leaders to make smart, confident money decisions. Welcome to episode number 26 of the Making Sense of Your Money podcast. I am your host. I'm Dan Pascone, founder and CEO of Tailored Wealth. And each episode features a trusted voice in the financial world, someone who works directly with high-level professionals to simplify the complex and turn strategy into action. And I'm pretty pumped about our guest today. We've got with us Joseph Gradante, who is the co-founder and CEO of Alio Capital. And his firm is doing some really interesting stuff in the macro investing space. So Joseph, thanks for joining Making Sense of Your Money. I'm pumped to have you today.
Dan, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Cool, man. So we've got a lot to cover, and I know that our audience is going to want to hear your expert take on a bunch of different topics. So let's jump right in. And if you don't mind, give us just a high-level overview of what you do at Alio, and then tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into the space.
For sure. We use AI, our patent-pending altitude AI technology, to power our macro portfolios. Really, the idea is to introduce what's ubiquitous on the institutional side to retail investors. You know, you can either have our management team do it for you if you're not interested in getting involved, or you can learn in less than 90 seconds how to build a macro portfolio, originally pioneered by Ray Dalio and his all-weather strategy and risk parity. I think in the environment that we're in, geopolitics drive returns just as much as fundamentals do. So that's the way to invest in this environment, in my opinion.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I definitely can relate to, and I know a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, and geopolitical risks are absolutely real. So if you don't mind, give us like a high level overview. If I'm the average investor and I'm getting access to Alio Capital, walk me through the user experience a bit.
So again, there's two options, right? One option is, hey, I am too busy. I don't want to learn about this. I just want to let a professional do it for me, set it on autopilot. So that's one path. You're done in less than 30 seconds if you answer questions quickly, right? And then the other path, I think, when you look at the state of fintech, a lot of trading apps, they have 20 at the user base of the robo-advisors, and over 90% of people are losing money on trading apps. And so the other path is for people that like some level of control, don't want to pay fees to asset managers, and they've learned something, but maybe haven't been successful trading. And so the other path is, hey, I can build these custom top-down portfolios, negatively correlated assets, and in less than a couple minutes themselves, right? And it's set up like a smorgasbord. We pioneered this term behavior-led UX, right? It's designed around intentionality. And so it's asset class, sector, industry, geography, boom, boom, boom. There you go. You got a portfolio set up in less than 3 minutes that you can passively manage and generate alpha.
I love that. I want to dig into that a little bit more. Behavior-led UX, a very interesting term. Tell the average investor, what does that mean?
It means that there's an ed tech component. So, there's a lot of books out there on macro investing, and in today's day and age, people just don't have the time to sit there and read, right? So behavior-led UX means that they learn as they're doing it. So they walk away and they're like, that's top down. That's what a macro portfolio looks like. And, basically, coming from finance myself, when I learned it, there's the bottom up approach, right? Which is the Benjamin Graham fundamental analysis, that approach. And then there's the top down approach, which is driven more by like geopolitics and technicals. And I think it's a lot easier to step back and look at things holistically and learn the top down approach when it comes to building a portfolio, because it's all about having the right diversification. And so if you can't pick asset classes and you can't pick sectors, then how are you going to pick stocks? You start there, right? Well, once you can pick sectors, then you drill down into stocks, then you get into options, but you don't start there. And I think that's the problem. A lot of people start there, and that's why they fail.
Yeah, that's a great point. They start at the end instead of starting at the beginning, per se.
Exactly. Yeah,
we see that all the time. Yeah, we see it all the time. All right, let's talk a little bit about the ideal clients, right, that you're serving. So I get that there's kind of two different profiles here, right? We've got the set it and forget it, I don't want the involvement, and then we've got the more active investor, right? And we see that in our business, right? So talk us through a little bit of like what each of those client profiles looks like for you and your team.
Yeah, without going into like the specific ICPs, I think there's a lot of people out there that are, let's call them the failed trader. They're using a lot of they've used Webull, they've used Robinhood, they haven't had a lot of success with these apps. They're paying attention to markets and they maybe have 4 or 5 different apps on their phone. They're not brand new investors, right? And that's the path for people that want to set up their own, custom portfolios and learn how to do it. They've tried a little bit, they have some exposure, but they realize that's not working and they want something that's more sustainable long term that can help them meet their financial goals. And then on the other side is really, I think, the busy professional, right? That doesn't really want to do it themselves, but realizes that maybe a lot of the robos out there, they aren't generating a lot of alpha because they're not using, newer technologies. Let's put it that way. I think, there's a lot of, I mean, we can go into rabbit holes about, mean variance optimization, but it's essentially regression analysis. Would you want an engine from the 90s powering your car? No. So why would you want that powering your money? So when you think about, tech professionals, for example, lawyers, doctors, who really want cutting edge technology, managing their investments and an institutional quality team, well, the managed path, the set and then forget it path is appropriate for them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I love the car analogy. So let's talk a little bit more about, is it all app based, and are there different sort of like customer and user options within the app? Let's dig a little bit deeper into what they're going to see when they get access to Alio.
Yeah, it's a mobile application, and based on how they answer the questions, right? So it'll tee up, these different options for them, and they can pick either or, right? We're not going to tell people what they have to do, but it'll be geared towards that solution, and then that will just walk them down the path that I just described once they answer those questions.
And do you find that like the questions combined with like the AI and the model that you've built are what differentiate you from some of the applications that you mentioned earlier, or is there more to it than that?
I think, yeah, it's the behavior UX, it's the UI. I think it's really tailored to, people. I mean, we have a network tracker there so people can, kind of track their progress over time. But I think it's a combination thereof, the behavior-led UX with the AI. I'll give you one example. If you go into Alio and you try to set up a portfolio, you try to just buy 2 assets, for example, it won't let you, right? You have to have a minimum based on the answers that you give to the questions, right? It'll know your risk tolerance and it'll say, hey, so this isn't in your risk tolerance.
You chose assets that are not aligned with your risk tolerance.
With your risk tolerance. And it'll also make you have a minimum of 4 assets so that you learn. That's what I mean about behavior-led UX. You learn how to construct a portfolio. If you could just take a little time out of your life, you don't have to pay somebody else to do it, which, over the course of an investing span of 30 to 40 years could eat away at, a quarter to, over a third of your compound annual growth.
Makes a lot of sense. Where do you see this industry going, Joseph? What's the future of this business, and how are the technologies like yours helping to shape investing for the average consumer?
Well, I think it's really FinTech 2.0. When I first got into FinTech, everybody, was talking about, hey, what's coming to FinTech 2.0? And then you had this lull and this lag as a result of this risk-off environment. We had a fairly draconian regulatory environment. You didn't see a lot of M&A activity going on for 4 years under the Biden administration. And one of the things that this administration has done, I mean, look at the big, beautiful bill, you look at the deregulation, you look at the focus on crypto, the Genius Act, it's really been favorable, to FinTech as a whole. Sure. And the expansion of these technologies that we really need to kind of reinvent our, because technology has permeated, it seems like, every space, where I think there's still a lot of room is in the financial sector. You talk about cross-border payments and, to integrate. It's been slow to adopt compared to other industries. And I think a lot of it had to do with, who is in power. And I think with this new administration, it's going to be accelerated. And yeah, I'm just really excited about where it's going because, there's obviously a lot of issues, right? With the monetary system, the debt levels. And I think in a lot of ways, FinTech can offer, solutions to these issues that we're having.
Okay. All right. That makes a lot of sense. So like when
When you have investors that are on your platform and they're filling out your questionnaire and they're going through the UX, are you offering them the same investment options that the other platforms are and just doing it with a smarter model, or are they potentially getting access to investments that they wouldn't be getting on the general apps?
So, the odd lot theory is, right? And, which is generally that the retail investor is always wrong as a result of accumulation and distribution. And by the time it gets to retail investors, they're on the back end of the trade, right? And I think, that's just the wrong way to approach it. You have a lot of kind of ties in with your last question. You have this change and disruption going on. And macro investing is the solution to that. You have these debt levels, you have inflation, right? Do you really want a portfolio that's 40% bonds, right? If there's a currency, asset class is most likely to be negatively impacted. So our macro approach, right, is the superior approach, and it's ubiquitous on the institutional side, but we are introducing that to the retail investor. So in that sense, yeah, we're offering a different process and a superior approach, but we're also offering a better technologies to support that approach, which is the Altitude AI technology. So I think in all facets, behavior-led UX, our goal is innovation and delivering for our clients and really taking portfolio management into the future. So, and I think we're doing that on many different levels.
Very cool. Very cool. Good stuff there. Let's talk a little bit about your background and how you got into Alio. Tell us a little bit about what led you to building this organization. Tell us a little bit about your role in the business. I'd like to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I grew up in Manhattan, saw 9/11 happen. I had, family that worked at Cantor Fitzgerald. I went to intern at Cantor Fitzgerald when I graduated, college. And so I was, impacted by what I saw happen. And then I graduated during the Great Recession. And so I was impacted by that. And it seems like you have these black swan systemic events every 10 years. And I saw finance was changing. It seemed like rearranging chairs on the Titanic at that point, is that like all these industries were shrinking, all these different parts of the industry were shrinking, whether it was, trading, the wealth management, right? Maybe everywhere except for, M&A. So trying to figure out like my place in that. And I saw fintech when I was at Merrill. I remember, the management teams talking about, hey, we got the grandparents, we got the parents, but we can't get the kids, right? We can't get the grandkids because you had this great wealth transfer happen. And there was this general anti-establishment sentiment going on. And so you saw the emergence of this new industry expanding access to a lot of people. And I thought that was exciting and cool. But what stood out to me is that, it was mostly a lot of fancy UX and a lot of tech, but not a lot of substance, not a lot of gravitas. And so It was obviously in its nascent stage, and I watched it and I analyzed it and I did market research and I paid attention and I started learning how to code and I started, migrating over to tech. I moved to the West Coast and then COVID happened, right? And that was the final piece of the puzzle. It was like, wow, when I saw the money being printed, right? And then Thomas Piketty wrote the book, Capital in the 21st Century. Ray Dalio came out with principles for dealing with the changing global order. And then, you have the MAGA stuff going on. And it's interesting because they're all saying the same thing in a different way. You got Piketty who's saying the same thing and he's over on the left. You got Dalio saying the same thing and he's in the center. And then you got Trump saying the same thing on the right. And it's like, this is really about economics at the end of the day.
It's not
people
politics.
need to prepare for this for eternity, that macro investing is a solution. And so it made me really passionate about introducing this to the general public.
Very cool. Very cool. Tell us a little bit about the how long has the business been intact for? Tell us a little bit about the team you have around you, and then how are investors finding your application and your solution?
Yeah, so the team that I have around me is just I can't really put into words. They're phenomenal. Just a lot of our CTO Chris Agloff. What he brings to the table, I don't think can really be articulated. And Benjamin Bryant, he's really responsible for the behavior-led UX that I've described. And, you got Adam Damko, right, in the Altitude AI technology. And we just brought in Nico Perugini over from Citadel. So really an excellent core collection of talent there. They can find us at aliocapital.com. in the App Store, Google Play. It's Alio, Alio Capital.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. That's a great background, Joseph. Thanks for sharing that. We're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to get to know you a little bit better. So we're going to do one of my favorite segments in the podcast, and that's the lightning round. So the only caveat with the lightning round is just give us the first thought that comes to your mind. Could be a one-word answer, could be a long drawn-out thought, or anywhere in between. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. We'll start with an easy one. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
One meal for the rest of your life. What is it?
Chicken parm.
Oh, I like that. Now I'm hungry. What's one tool or piece of technology, so it could be hardware or software, other than your phone or your computer that you can't live without?
AirPods.
AirPods. I like it. Okay, sounds good. Favorite quote or phrase about money or success?
I'm going to have to go with Ray Dalio. And he's, any damn fool can make it complex. It takes a genius to make it simple. And that's what we've done with macro investing. So I really like that quote.
Well said. That's a really good one. So, I mean, maybe you're going down the same road here, but do you have a favorite book on finance or business?
Finance or business. I like 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. It's just pure business and not economics. Yeah, I like
Good one.
I like that.
Good one. Do you have a personal hack that you could share with the audience?
ChatGPT.
All right. So tell us how someone in your shoes that's running a technology company uses ChatGPT. What's the main use case for you on a day-to-day basis?
Well, don't ever send out a message without running it through ChatGPT. I mean, come on, take an extra 30 seconds, because when I do, there's typos and time is very valuable. But if you can just take an extra 30 seconds, it can make a world of difference.
Very cool. Yep, I get it. One bucket list item that you've already accomplished.
Skiing down black diamonds in the Cascades.
I was going to say, I noticed from your LinkedIn profile that you're a skier, so I thought that would come out at some point in time. All right, so that's pretty cool.
That might be a stretch. I'm from Manhattan, but I do love skiing, and it's why I moved to the West Coast. So, yeah.
And are you in the West Coast now?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay,
I live in the Pacific Northwest.
Got it. All right, very cool. What is one financial milestone that you're working towards, business or personal?
Raising the Series A round. That's the big milestone. Yeah.
All right. Well, best of luck on that. And then lastly, if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Less focus on, traditional education. I really beat myself up over, not going to Ivy League schools. I really for undergrad. And now I realize it's what you do when you get out that matters. Being autodidactic, there's a lot of tools and information out there. And if you make the best use of it, then, the world and particularly the web is your oyster.
Yeah, well said. The world and the web is your oyster. That's a great quote for everyone out there. That's one I'm gonna steal that one from you, Joseph. I like that. All right, very good. And I know you mentioned aliocapital.com on the App Store, but if our listeners want to connect with you, collaborate, work with you, what's the best way for them to reach you, or where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, and yeah, I think you can find me on LinkedIn.
Very cool. All right, that sounds good. Well, thank you for sharing your insights today. It was really cool learning about you, learning about Alio Capital. You guys are doing some really, really interesting stuff in that space. And that's it for the episode. Joseph, thanks for joining us. And to our audience, as always, continue to prioritize your version of a rich life. Cheers, everybody.